Dear Ben, Mayan, Shosh, Gabe and Julia, Simone and Dotan, 5 years ago, I wrote a love letter to you. It was a love letter about Israel. I wrote it to you, but I shared it with the congregation on Rosh Hashanah 5 years ago, and at that time, I wanted you to feel my deep love of Israel, a love that had shaped my childhood, my rabbinate, and my sense of Jewish identity. A lot has happened in these 5 years. Our family has expanded, and now Simone and Dotan, Gabe and Julia are part of this kids' letter. Ben, Mayan, and Shosh, you no longer solely carry the burden of being the only rabbi's kids who get to be publicly embarrassed. Our family now stretches from Bethesda to Philadelphia to Brooklyn to Tel Aviv. And sometimes that feels miraculous, like a map of Jewish life in the 21st century, diaspora and homeland, East Coast and Middle East. But sometimes Sarah and I wish we could all cocoon together away from the pressures we face. WhatsApp and text sometimes just does not feel enough. I'm writing to you again because we do not get to choose the times in which we live. We are born into a moment. We only get to choose how we respond to those moments, how we grow from them. At this moment, it is a very difficult one. As an American, as a Jew, and as a lover of Israel. Karov Adonai lishberei lev. God is close to the brokenhearted. At least that is what the psalmist promises. I want to believe it is true. I need it to be true because I, like so many of us, feel heartbroken. Today is the 718th day of the hostages being held by Hamas. 718 days, nearly 2 full years. The horrors of October 7th still reverberate. Hamas's brutality, the ruthless murder, the sexual violence, the kidnapping of over 250 people was the largest slaughter of Jews in a single day since the Holocaust. That wound is not healed. It cannot be yet healed. And yet the world continues on, and nations now vote to reward Hamas with recognition of Palestinian statehood, with no release of hostages, no call to renounce terrorism, no requirement even to acknowledge Israel's right to exist. I cannot make sense of that. My heart is broken by it. Israel responded on October 7th as any country would. But something went wrong along the way. I still believe in the ethos and the training of the IDF, but the war, the longest in Israel's history, has worn down soldiers and citizens alike. War objectives shifted, trust in Israel's ultranationalist political leaders has diminished, and there was no time to mourn the losses before new traumas piled up. Inevitably, mistakes occurred, standards shifted. In time, we will need to do our own reckoning because the horrors inflicted upon us do not justify inflicting horrors upon others. From the start, Israel faced 3 conflicting goals: defeat Hamas, protect civilians, and free the hostages. All 3 were impossible to achieve at once. Hamas knew this. They designed their war strategy not for the battlefields of Rafah or Khan Yunis, but for the front pages of Western newspapers. They built tunnels instead of shelters, stockpiled weapons in hospitals, and hid hostages in apartment buildings. They used the suffering of their own people as a weapon against Israel. And Israel fell into their trap. Militarily, Israel has weakened Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. But strategically, Israel has lost standing in the eyes of the world. And worst of all, the hostages remain out of reach. This was Hamas's plan and Israel's nightmare. Kids, this moment is not only heartbreaking for us abroad, it is breaking us here in America too. I worry that too many young Jews, especially progressive Jews, will not re-engage with Israel when this war ends. I worry that for many, the bond has already been severed. Judaism itself will be diminished if that's true. Rabbi Daniel Hartman recently said it's almost a generation now that Israel doesn't represent many of the values that most of world Jewry cares about. The gap between the Israel we're supposed to talk about and the Israel that is has become very large. I know the source of my Jewish identity is not the same as yours. Israel was central, it was unifying and inspiring. For you and your peers, I fear Israel seems blemished. Too many of your friends may not see the Israel of dreams, but only the Israel of occupation. I worry that some are repulsed not only from Israel, but from Judaism itself, and America is not an easier home. From both the extreme left and the extreme right, we have felt hatred. On the left, from the river to the sea is not a vision of Palestinian dignity, but a call for the elimination of Israel. And on the right, attempts to fight anti-Semitism by defunding universities are less about protecting Jews and more about scoring others' political points. American Jews are pawns in this game of others. Worse than the rhetoric, violence is coming from both directions. Just this week, a wedding in New Hampshire was attacked by a shooter shouting, "Free Palestine." And earlier this year, 2 men were shot in Miami because the gunman thought that they were Palestinians. And ironically, they were Israelis. Life is precarious, Deuteronomy says. The life you face shall be precarious. You shall be in terror night and day with no assurance of survival, the Bible says. And sometimes that verse feels painfully contemporary. Simone and Dotan, you hear the sirens in Tel Aviv. You walk your neighborhood streets knowing missiles have landed there. My struggles here in America are different. They are about identity, not survival. But both are struggles. As a child, I recall learning that Abraham Joshua Heschel taught Judaism revolves around 3 sacred entities: God, Torah, and Israel. Arguments about God and Torah didn't seem to divide Jews too much. We could accept differences, Maimonides, Kaplan, Soloveitchik, radically different thinkers, but still within the Jewish tent. But we never developed the same fluidity of thought about Israel. Concerning Israel, we cancel each other. A synagogue vendor 2 weeks ago asked us to declare our official position on Gaza. We invited her to read my sermons or join my open conversations about Israel group, which I've been running for well over a year and is open to anyone who wants to come. She refused. We parted ways. At the same time, a congregant left the synagogue because he said, quote, "If a rabbi criticizes Israel, you need a new rabbi." And so I invited him to coffee many times. He declined each time. And eventually we said goodbye. The middle is not easy to hold, but it is necessary. The middle is not wishy-washy. It is the place of nuance and of dialogue and of conviction. Shosh and Ben, you are the only ones that'll be here on Rosh Hashanah when we blow the shofar. There are many reasons for sounding the shofar, but one of the most surprising comes from the story of Sisera in the book of Judges. Sisera was the enemy of Israel. He was defeated by Deborah and killed by Yael, 2 powerful women in the Tanakh. And we know Sisera has died, but his mother is looking for reasons for his delay. Maybe he is dividing up the spoils of his victory against the Israelites. When Sisera's mother gets word that her son is dead, the Talmud says she cried 100 times. And according to our rabbis, those tears, the tears of our enemy's mother, inspired our 100 shofar blasts on Rosh Hashanah. Judaism does not stop us from fighting our enemies, but it does not allow us to lose our humanity in doing so. We place her pain in the middle of our sacred holiday. We cannot become desensitized to the costs of war, but it pains me to feel like too many have. This war has also morphed into something beyond Hamas, into a war of land. Some leaders in Israel, driven by messianic nationalism, have turned territory into an idol itself. Yeshayahu Leibowitz warned as early as 1968, just a year after the 67 war, that to ascribe holiness to land is idolatry. The land can be precious, but God is holy. When nationalism replaces God, when expansionism is understood as divine will, we risk losing our moral compass. Even in the Bible, the land was never exclusively ours. The Israelites coexisted, sometimes in tension, sometimes in conflict, but never alone. Sharing the land has always been part of our story, and it must remain our aspiration, even if today it feels impossibly far. As Daniel Hartman teaches, we must shift from being a warrior nation to being pursuers of peace again. We must articulate not only what we want to destroy, but what we want to build, not only for ourselves, but for Palestinians too. My letter is already long, but I must end with some soul searching. Kids, I want you to inherit a love of Israel. I want you to inherit a love of Israel that is fierce and clear-eyed, a love that takes pride and also challenges her, a love that acknowledges her flaws without abandoning her. I pray there are Palestinian parents writing a similar letter to their children. And maybe someday we will meet each other. Yossi Klein Halevi wrote, "We cannot let the haters determine the inner life of the Jewish people. Zionism has succeeded. Yes, we are vulnerable, but we are no longer victims. Judaism demands that we engage in moral introspection. This is our task, to be proud of being Jewish, to push Israel to be better, to reclaim our calling as Or Lagoyim, a light unto the nations. That does not mean surrendering to those who deny our right to exist. To the contrary, it means strengthening our resilience, rebuilding the devastated communities like Kibbutz Nir Oz, and rejecting the false promises of simple slogans from both the left and the right. Bethel and Kibbutz Nir Oz have forged a special relationship with the guidance of Bethel's family, Salo and Lisa Zellemeyer. It is just one tangible mark that we can make to help Israelis know that they are not alone, and for us to also realize that we are not alone in this dark time. We must share a vision beyond this war, a vision for Israel and for Judaism. I had the honor recently to listen to Gadi Moses speak. Gadi is a founder of Kibbutz Nir Oz. He is an expert in farming technologies. Over the years, the Ministry of Agriculture sent Gadi to many foreign countries to help them develop their agriculture. And Gadi was held hostage by Hamas for 482 days. He did not talk about the captivity, but shared a story that embodies a vision beyond the war, a vision of a different paradigm for Israelis and Palestinians to live. He shared that he told his terrorist captors that if the war ends, he would come to Gaza and help them to build their crops, to learn to farm and to thrive as neighbors. Gadi's vision is to, quote, hear the shouts of children's joy on the kibbutz again, celebrating holidays as a community, and the kibbutz will be productive again. 482 days. If that can be Gadi's hope, we can find certainly hope as well. We must cultivate partners who will articulate a vision for Palestinians and Arabs based on mutual recognition, security, and respect. We cannot do this alone. Those courageous voices on both sides are not in power, though. If we lose a vision and hope for what we can be, if we lose our prophetic vision of the Jewish people, our enemies have defeated us. Ben, Mayan, Shosh, Gabe, and Julia, Simone and Dotan, Karov, Adonai, Lishberei Lev. God is close to the brokenhearted. I hope so. I am hopeful. Hatikva proclaims, as long as in the heart within the Jewish soul yearns, our hope is not yet lost. To be a free people in our land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem. And I choose to read this last line more expansively, to be a free people in our land and for others to be free in theirs. We have been born into this moment. We get to choose how we respond. I choose to have hope. I choose to begin with myself and articulate my pride in being Jewish, my love of Israel, and my efforts to make Israel live up to its own ideals. I choose to then extend my voice to my circle of influence and not to remain silent of my love of Israel. I choose not to avoid hard conversations just because slogans are easier. Walking through Tel Aviv, I see that Israel is so close to fulfilling its dream. Israeli Jews and Israeli Arabs are integrated in so many beautiful ways, and yet the divides are tremendous. I hope I have modeled for you that to be a Zionist is still to dream of what can be. We cannot give up on dreaming for Israelis or for Palestinians, because if we will it, it is no dream. I love you. Am Yisrael Chai. To invite the Chazan.